Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the PBB. This is their part number WTPB51 4x6 630. Okay, what is that? Well, let's take a look. Here it is. Here's the hinge, and we'll dissect the part number. So, by first glance, you might say to yourself, well, that looks awfully unusual. Well, it's a wide throw hinge, so it's going to be wider than it is tall. And it's a wide throw hinge because what it does is it throws the vertical axis of pivoting out further, making it what we call a wide throw hinge. Let's take some dimensional properties, and then we'll talk about where you'd use this. So this is a 4x6. That's important to know in the sense that it's 4-inch tall and 6-inch wide. Okay. If you're dealing with square hinges, you can get by without knowing which of the two dimensions is the height. But on hinges, it's the height first. It's the opposite of doors. Doors are the width first and then the height. Hinges are the height first. So that's important to know. Because you wouldn't want to prep your door for a 6-inch hinge when you've got 4x6 hinges. Early in my career, I did not understand the distinction, and I had gotten quite some time into the industry before I actually realized hinges were not sized the same as doors. I think I sold everything I did was 4.5. I think everything I did. I did not have to learn immediately that the height was the first dimension, but then I did a job at the University of Chicago. University of Illinois at Chicago. Not the University of Chicago, that's a different institution. University of Illinois at Chicago. UIC we would call it, and there were may have been 20 doors, hollow metal doors and frames. There were a couple of stairwells, and the project called out for 5 by 4.5. Well, you know what I did. Okay. I prepped those at 4.5, and the guy's like, the hinges don't fit in the frames. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're 5 by 4.5, I said to the guy. He's like, yep, they're supposed to be, but they're not. I'm like, no, they are. I know that I prepped those. I know that I sent 5 by 4.5 inch hinges, in the sense that's what the box said. I know that the doors and frames were sent out with 4.5 inch tall preps. And he says, no, I think there's something wrong here. They ought to have a 5-inch tall hinge. And the first thing I did was went to a hinge catalog and figured out, okay. The issue with that, and why it was technically a problem, ended up not being an issue, is that doors wider than 3 foot, 3'6" and wider, they should have a taller hinge, which is why the architect specified 5 by 4.5s, and they were heavyweight. These were 3'6" doors, or 3'8", I forget, or may have been 4.0. They were 3'6", 3'8", or 4.0, and they were heavyweights, and I prepped it for 4.5-inch heavyweights. And I don't know where I would have, it doesn't matter, the hinges were wrong. I would have had to have gotten him new hinges. And it turns out that the contractor accepted it because these were extremely low use doors, as in twice a year sort of low use. He's like, you know what, they're never going to be used. Just get me the right hinges. I'll send you back these hinges, and it's just water under the bridge. So that was an inexpensive way for me to learn a very important learn from a very important mistake. There were many other hinge errors that have been made by many people, me at the top of the list, when you don't yet have all the same knowledge and wisdom that you do later in your career. Did you know that a Bomber 3029, and Hager makes them, other people make them, double acting spring hinge requires a pre-fit of the door? Yeah, I learned that one the hard way. So this is a 4x6. We'll talk about where it's used. Let's dissect the part number, though, right after I want to check the thickness of the leaf. We know it's 4x6. This is a standard weight, and that is inferred in the part number as well, and the fact that it's lacking the number 4. This should be 130 thousandths, or maybe 134. Yeah, this is 0.129, so it's a standard weight commercial hinge. Now, it's important to know that wide throw hinges aren't load rated. I've had people want to order wide throw hinges, and they're clearly hanging something that is several hundreds of pounds. And the problem that I have encountered is, depending on how the door and frame is hung, I have seen a heavy door start to really pull that hinge open, even when it's in the closed position. So the door is literally sagging towards the hinge side. And that has to be a relationship between how wide all of this actually is. So do be mindful of that. The weight of the door is pulling on those hinges, and it will have a tendency to creep open a little bit more than I think that it would otherwise, when what's really hanging the door is the vertical axis of pivoting. And the further that you move that away from the face of the door, I would think the more exacerbated that sort of problem would be. So it's a WT hinge, wide throw. It's a PB, it's plain bearing. This is a 5-knuckle hinge, and there are no ball bearing packets. It's a 51, and that means that it's made of stainless steel. This isn't a 630, which is a brushed stainless steel, but the base material is actually stainless steel. Now, where are you going to use this hinge? Let's talk about that now. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Now, where will you use a wide throw hinge? Well, you're going to use a wide throw hinge when you have a need, for whatever that need is, to move the vertical axis of pivoting out further away than it would be otherwise. This is 1 inch further away than it would be on a typical 4x4, because hinges are measured when the leaf is open. So if it's 4x6, that means that 6 minus 4 is 2, divided by 2 is going to give you the fact that, it's just 1 inch further out. At this point, it would be, a total of 2 inch separated, but when it's cut in half, you're looking at 1 inch. Many reasons why you would need to extend that out, and I've seen, I think, every one of them. It feels like I have. So you could have a situation where the door, any door hinge is going to take the door to 90 degree, pretty much. You want to get out past 90 degree, now you have to think about, where is that vertical axis of pivoting, positioning the center point around which the door rotates. Okay? You can, whatever. Think of it however you like. That's the point around which it all rotates. The sun and planets, a yo-yo that you just turn around, whatever you're thinking. That spiral pen set that we all played with as children that would allow you to make elliptical sorts of designs. There's a center point that it's kind of rotating around. And those reasons would be the one that's probably a bit less common. So let's move on in terms of where you'll use this. So the typical situation is you'll take the door to 90 degrees. Okay, great. Every hinge can pretty much do that. The trick is when you want to go out past 90 degrees, let's say to 180. And that's where you have to start thinking about, where is the vertical axis of pivoting? It may not matter. And in fact, let me back up. It always matters. It should always be thought about. It shouldn't just be assumed out of ignorance that 4.5 is the hinge that you use every time. In fact, it's usually not the best choice. And in fact, I'd say it's almost never the best choice, because there's a formula that we use that I'll show you that will tell you where to put that vertical axis of pivoting. You want it as tight to the face of the door as you can, as is possible, because the hinge's ability to actually hang the load of the door is more efficient when that is moved closer to the center of the door, really. But let's say that you have chair rail, you have a wood frame, pair of doors separating a dining room from a sitting room, TV room, kitchen, wall, front room, what we'd call a front room, if you're from Chicago, front room, a front room, sitting room. You might have a pair of doors in there. Well, you might want to take those doors and open them 180 degrees, except you have chair rail on the door, and that's sticking out 5/8 of an inch. Is it a problem? Maybe not. But you have to figure out whether it is. You might need to move that vertical axis of pivoting out. Very typical. Baseboard, thick baseboard, things of that nature that you can't get out and around, you might need to consider where that vertical axis of pivoting is located. Another instance, staying on the door concept is same pair of doors. Now, rather than 2 3-foot doors, think four 18-inch doors. You're going to have the inner doors, the outer doors. The inner doors are going to flip out like this. Then all of that's going to stack out. That exists. I've seen that. I've seen it in pairs of doors. I've seen it in 4 leafs that all stacked in one direction. I saw that in Manhattan, and I've gone back to New York, and I can't find. It was somewhere 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 streets south of Central Park, right between 5th Avenue and 7th Avenue, that kind of thing. I've walked those streets. I can't find it anymore. It's like as if they've been demoed. If you've been there, you know how confined, how restrained space is there. So they had this big driveway where they needed to be able to get big, like the garbage man needs to come in and get the dumpster. But they had no room to put a pair of swinging doors. So of this 9-foot wide opening, or whatever, it was wide. It was wide enough for a vehicle. They had individual doors. And sure enough, somebody sat down. It wouldn't be hard to do, but you'd have to just sit down and draw it. Had these hinges such a way that they could stack, and those hinges towards the jamb, they were quite wide. So you could do that as well. The other scenario where you see this, the original state capitol building in Iowa, which is in Iowa City, the first floor walls are exceptionally thick because where all of the state congressmen would meet was on the second floor. In the 19th century, there's no structural steel. They had about 18-inch deep or thick walls. They had 18-inch jambs with what we would kind of call today a colonial stop. Pairs of wood doors, French doors, 10, 15 light, giant oak doors, individually glazed lights, set in the center of these 18-inch jambs. Well, guess what? You're going to need a wide throw hinge in order to get that, to not only get the hardware attached, but to get them to actually swing and function. If you have this barrel that has a certain thickness and you try to install that to the door and frame and it's going to hit the jamb. So what they do is you can either go with a raised barrel hinge or you go with a really wide hinge and you move that vertical axis of pivoting rather than from here where you can't install it if my hand is the jamb, out over here. So that would be another instance of where you would use a wide throw hinge. They're not load rated, so if you're going to use them, and I'm expecting a call from a client who wants to do a carriage opening, for like a garage, one large door and then 2 doors that are going to probably, the outer door will probably fold out and the inner door will fold against it. We're going to talk about hinges in that regard. So let's switch to the screen view and let's take a closer look at how we operate this formula and the supporting documentation. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. Now, here's the item that we are looking at. Not much to see here, so let's take a look at some images that we have. WTPB51, wide throw, plain bearing, stainless steel base material, 5-knuckle, full mortise, 4x6. The most durable of all finishes, a natural finish, we call this. It's nothing other than brushed over solid stainless. There's the hinge. I don't love the logo. I mean, I like the logo. I'd love it if it was about 40% smaller. I don't like corporate advertising on my builder's hardware. But it's a clean hinge. It's a clean finish. The area in here is where I look. I did a good job with this. I mean, it's all, it's a very durable finish, but they did a good job. So let's keep moving through this video review of this item. Okay, so what we have here is the hinge. That's showing the swag or the bend on the hinge leaf. That's what really makes the hinge up to be what it actually is. That bend like that means full mortise when it's done on both of the leaves. Okay, let's take a look. And where that's going is, as you change that bend, you change the hinge type, is what it is. Full mortise, full surface, half mortise, raised barrel, swing clear, beveled and square edge doors, all raised barrel if I haven't said it. The back side of the hinge, PBB does a great job finishing the back side of the hinge. You don't see much of the hinge, but in a wide throw, you're going to see a lot of the hinge. You'll see all of that. So it's nice that they do a good job on that. Then a close-up of the finish, showing the knuckle intersection. The logo, again, it'd be nice if it was right about there. And then the screw package. I also have a cut sheet here. Let's take a look at the cut sheet. This is nice because it tells you want a steel-based hinge, use an 81 part number. Brass or bronze-based, 21. 51 for stainless. And gives you the other details of the hinge. The leaf thickness, the clearance between the leaves when they're brought parallel, how the hinges are swagged, which is what determines that, features and whatnot. There is also a link to the template. That's handy if you want to know where the screw hole locations are located. This is the template pattern. This document is a template, but these locations are referred to as the template pattern. If you have a door and a frame that are prepped to the template pattern, this hinge will fit without any trouble. Gives you the barrel diameter, the leaf length, the length to the swag line, the S dimension. It's a 16th here. I think it said a 32nd on the other page. What's a 32nd between friends? 4-inch length. This template applies for 4.5 wide, 5 wide, 6 wide. They can do it in radiused corners as well. Doesn't mean they stock the material, but they can do it. Now, there's a link below this video. Bear with me. As seen here to the manufacturer's page. When you click on that, you can pull up not only all of the PBB hinges we sell by means of this horizontal navigation, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. Now, I told you that we would talk about the formula for wide throw, and let's do that now. Now, so what I did was I pulled up the manufacturer's catalog. In here, I know the formula is somewhere. Here it is. So let's study this. Because if you're dealing in hinges, you're gonna if you're dealing in a project and you need to calculate your width, this is how you're going to do it. Let's talk about it. If you've made it this far into this video, you must be determined to see it through to the end, and we appreciate your hanging in there with us and watching this entire video. It means a lot. It takes a lot of work to create these videos in the sense that, it's time taken away from doing other things. However, the advantage for me personally of creating these videos is the fact that it does allow myself to either learn about something new, to reacquaint myself with something, or to reinforce what I believe that I already know. Any comments that you might leave down below would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. The manufacturer gives us a chart here, and that's handy, and I think most people are going to just absolutely rely on this, and you should. The chart is there for a reason. We actually stock some 12-inch wide if it ever came up. Now, having said that, here's the math behind the formula. It's right here, but we'll go through it. You take the door thickness and you subtract from the door thickness the back set, which is the distance from the edge of the door, the inside push face of the door, to where the mortise for the hinge starts. On an 1 3/4 thick door, that's generally 1/4 inch. So 1.75 minus 0.25 times 2 is 3 inch. You then add the clearance, the inset. It's generally 0 or less than 1/8 of an inch, or it could be anything, like in that state capital of Iowa building. It could be 7 3/4 inch or 8 1/8, whatever. It could be anything, but you have to calculate that. So whatever the dimension is from the face of the frame to the face of the door, if you run your hand over it, the jamb and the door, it may be flush, very often is, and it may not be, but you have to add that. Let's say our inset is 1/8 of an inch. It wouldn't be, but let's say that it is. Meaning, if it's not an eighth of an, it wouldn't be an eighth, but it would be extremely close to that. So let's just put an eighth inch there. Then you add your clearance. Well, let's say that we have no clearance. Meaning there's nothing to get around. There's no chair rail, no baseboard, no nothing. So that's 0. So we're at 3 inch plus the clearance plus inset. So plus 0 plus eighth of an inch. That means 3 1/8 inch. You go up to the next widest size. So in this instance, the next widest size could be 3 1/2 inch wide if we were dealing with a 4 inch tall hinge. You can get a 4 by 3 1/2. You go to the next size. Now what if the clearance is 1 inch? You get the math. 3 plus eighth plus 1. Now you're at 4 1/8. Go to the next biggest size. 4 1/2, maybe 5. Depends on the hinge. Let's say that this inset is now 2 inches. So 3 plus 2, and your clearance is like 1 inch. So now you're at 6 inches. Okay, great. You can get a 6 inch wide hinge. The point is it's right here. But this is what it looks like, and that's what you have to be mindful of. And what you're trying to do is to arrange at what would be considered best practice. If your door can get out to 180 degrees, closed 90 degree, 180 degrees, there's no problem over here, then you want the hinge that is closest to the face of the door and frame as possible. So you'll select the narrowest available option rather than the next available option. But when you get into a situation where you have something out here, now you've got to think about where that vertical axis of pivoting is going to be positioned. Pretty typical. And you've got doors that are going to stack that's going to go that way, then the pair of them will go that way. You've got to think about how you're going to position all of that depending on how far you're going to stack them. You might want this to stack here, then this to stack 180 degrees. You're really going to have to think about that hinge because your clearance is going to end up being this door thickness plus the gap between the two doors. You'll have to really think about that. Actually, no, that's not correct. Not at all, actually. You're only going to be thinking about what you need to get this thickness. I suppose if we were doing it this way, if you were doing it this way, if you wanted to go that hinge that way and this hinge that way, you'd really have to think about the width of that hinge. That's going to be, well, you'd probably have to think about more than that. I don't think you'd ever do that. Anyway, it's quite fun to be able to consider, how to put this math together. Okay, this horse is officially dead. Let's wrap up this video on camera. Regarding the links to ads that you might see in this video, we do apologize for any interruption to a smooth viewing experience. And hopefully the ads that are being presented to you are related to the base product. And if there is something, feel free to click on those and perhaps consider taking a look at what that other advertiser is promoting. Let's get back to the video. Now, in conclusion, I do endorse the name PBB when it comes to hinges, and I'll tell you why. It's a good product, there's no doubt. It's a very good product. It's clean, meaning it physically is a clean specimen when it arrives. It doesn't look like it's been sitting on a shelf for 18 years, scratched and dirty. And I just had an email from a company that, in my estimation, this company that just emailed me, they've got some sort of a problem. Their problem is likely related to our customer service department. Us asking them where our material is probably what they're calling to say that they don't like the way that we're requesting the data. Where's my stuff? That's what we're asking. You know why? Because you're asking, where's my stuff? people like this gentleman don't understand that I can buy an Asian manufactured hinge anywhere. This is made in Asia. There's no doubt. The parts are in Asia. It's brought over here for finishing. I can buy that hinge from anyone. You're not selling me the hinge. You're selling me the service, and that's what PBB absolutely has figured out very well. There's a gal over there who is exceptional. At a minimum, she's exceptional. It's an understatement. She's thoroughly responsive. She's expert when it comes to the product line. And listen, if you've got it, we don't have to talk about price because I need it, you have it. Meaning the price is important, but that's the second question. But when you have that exceptional customer service, I guarantee you that the person who doesn't understand it, that other company, they will never get a hinge order from us because they don't understand that they're not selling the hinge. There's nothing special about the hinge. It's the same size, thickness, base material is identical. The finishing, let's say, is identical. What they're selling is the service, the fluid-like nature by which they operate. You send a PO, they send an order confirmation, they send a tracking number. No one has to talk to no one. It all happens. All happens. You as the client, you're happy. You've got your hinges in a timely fashion. Your project is done. You've invoiced, and now you're moving on. So I endorse PBB. I enjoy them because of that exceptional arrangement they have when it comes to customer service. But I also appreciate the fact that their inventory is extremely deep. That's very helpful. So they are, and they're economical. So they are really a triumvirate of excellent, components that, there's a confluence of excellent factors that put us into the position to want to consider PBB. If there was no service, it'd be a lot less enjoyable to deal with them, and they're exceptional. Any questions on the WTPB51 or any other PBB product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up. Please subscribe and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you. Thanks to our clients, Architectural Builder Supply is building an additional facility. And what follows is not only a look at the acreage that we're building the facility on, but also first the architectural renderings as they exist, or at least the architectural plans as they exist at this time. Thank you very much. Let's take a look. All right, let's take a look at the architecturals as they exist at this moment, or at least it wouldn't be proper to call these architecturals, but it would be proper to call them renderings in the sense of they're conceptual drawings, they're not renderings. So the entire space is going to look like this in terms of a site rendering. This will be a 22,000 square foot building, of which we'll have specific purpose areas. There'll be a workshop down here. This is a few thousand square feet that will be likely woodworking, metalworking, CNC, things of that nature. This will be an office area here, a private office area. This will be Architectural Builders Supply expanded storage area where we will be able to do fulfillment. The entire space in the center is going to be all of the volume, as I call it. Large components will be able to be stored and stocked there. Machinery that's too large to fit otherwise may be put out here. Specific facility rooms, and then some recreation over here. Let's take a look at that drone footage, and thank you very much for taking a look.